We're now going to cover using operators with tuples. So they work identically as they do with lists. So again, this shouldn't be too much new material. We're going to look at the addition and multiplication operators. These are normally used with integers or floats, but you can use them with lists or tuples. You can use the in operator to check membership. So we're going to see examples of all three of these. All right, tuple addition. So let's take a look here. 1 plus 2 plus 3. And I'll just put, say 7, 8, 9. And I'll add maybe a third one. This will just be a couple. 4 plus 5. All right, so I've created 3 tuples here. And I need parentheses here, or else it would not work. It would just create one giant tuple. You might think, okay, what's going to happen here? Well, it's the same thing as with lists. It will concatenate them. It'll just make one giant tuple of all of the items. So that's what plus does with 2 tuples. We can see this again, but with variables. So sometimes this is actually a little bit easier to see. So let's say A is assigned to the first tuple, B to the second, and C to the third. Like this, we can do A plus B plus C, and we will get one tuple. So it's just concatenating them together into a single tuple. If you try to just add one item like this, it will not work. So that does not work. Doesn't matter if it's a string or a float or even another list. That will not work. So they all have to be tuples in order for you to use this little trick with the plus sign to concatenate them. And this is producing a new tuple in memory. So you would have to assign it to a variable like D in order to use it again and reference it. Okay, so these don't all have to be integers. Let's change this up actually. Let's make this one like true, put a string in here, maybe a float. So again, it just concatenates them all together because any type of object can be inside of a tuple. All right, you can repeat tuple items with the multiplication operator. Again, this is the same thing that happens with lists. So let's go back and look at that T tuple that we created above. And we have all of these items. So in order to use a multiplication operator, you can't multiply by another tuple. That doesn't work. You have to use an integer. So if we say multiply by 3, what's going to happen is that it'll just repeat this pattern 3 times. It's going to create one giant tuple. So here's the first one, second, and then third. Let's just do times 2. Okay, so it still just goes down. So the notebook will just print things down when it can't fit things across like that. You can multiply by 1 and just get this same tuple back. By 0, you actually get an empty tuple. So that's pretty interesting. You cannot use a negative. Well, actually, you can use a -1. It'll return an empty tuple as well. But usually you do this with positive integers in order to just repeat whatever is in there. So this is a kind of a quick and dirty way to get a lot of data sometimes, or just create a tuple of a larger size without having to input in all of the data manually. All right, last operator is this in operator, and that's how you can check for membership. So let's say we have, again, this tuple T. We want to check whether some item is in there. So like, is 12 in T? Well, that's true. There's 12 right there. You can say, is 1 in T? Do you see 1 anywhere? This actually returns true. And that's because we have the value true here. True and 1 evaluate as the same. So Python considers this a true, even though you don't actually see 1. That's a little bit surprising. If we have phone, but don't have it in the same case, we're going to get false. So there's the value phone over here. You can actually test for a specific, tuple or a list. So is this list in T? Is this one of the items? Well, yeah, it is true. If you change one of these, well, that's now no longer true. It is false. You can also say not in. Is 12 not in T? And that is false. It actually is in T, like that. So that's very cool. The in operator, I use it all the time to determine whether or not one particular value is in a tuple or a list. All right, so that is some use cases with operators: addition, multiplication, and the in operator.